It is 6:02 p.m. I hereby call the Scott County Advisory Planning Commission meeting to order. If we could, let's start at that end and introduce ourselves.
Stacy Turner.
Carly Ginn, attorney.
Clint James.
Johnson White, board member.
Randy Julian, Commissioner.
John Hauser, board member.
Gary Green, board member.
Mark Gardner.
Who do we have missing?
J.R. Ward, Matt Oberlees, and Andrew Boswell.
Okay. Before we get started, to me, and this is just me speaking, the environment in this room leaves a lot to be desired. This is a good hearing room, but sometimes it affects our decision up here. In the other rooms, we were closer together. So I think when we're back to normal business, I think number one, we got to be sure we use the microphones so we can amplify our voices. Mark sits at the end, I sit at the end. I often can't hear what's going on. I'm soon to be 71, so that might be a part of it. But I can still hear a deer breaking at 30 yards, break a limb, and so I don't know if that's it or not. The other part of that is, I won't call it a personal agenda, but I've come in the last 6 weeks, months, with some things that we've been talking about for years and want to get done. I know John has and some other has. So we've kind of fired a lot out there. Some of us have experience on the board different than others. So what I'd like to do, what worked well the other day, is if we could have what the original ordinance tacked up here so we can look at it. So when we decide to make changes, we'll make minimal changes. And we'll make changes kind of in the correct vocabulary. Reading it out to me, reading it out to John, reading it out, to me, doesn't suit that purpose. Ideally, I worked on a document that you could cross this section out or add letters to it, an edit function. And then you could look at that. If we could have something like that, that way that if we like the looks of it, we can begin the voting process that day rather than wait a month. So that's just kind of my latest heartburn. The other part of that is, if it is all possible, I'd like to go using the other facility. I felt it was better for a hearing where people got up and we could exchange information. Understand, they have meetings in this room. people get up and speak. But to exchange information is just different than listening to the general public speak, if that makes any sense.
I have a question. Is there another room in this building that's smaller that would be?
Yeah, there is one upstairs. The only part that's difficult with that room is having people join other than the board. Because it's not really that big. I don't know that we couldn't move some tables down here and lay it out different, maybe over there.
Is the room at the courthouse available still, or is that not available?
The judge is wanting to take that over full time now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't think it was probably gonna work because the magistrates are making that into the courtroom, so.
Yeah,
Well, if it can't, then maybe we could be sure that we use the microphones. We don't talk over each other. You know, we only talk about one subject at a time, those kind of things, so. That being said, that's just kind of 101. In front of us, we have some written minutes. This will be really the only business. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes as written?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion from John.
I'll
Do I have
second.
a second?
I'll second.
Randy? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? General consensus. All right, where are we at?
I'm sorry, I didn't get everybody an agenda, so you're the only one with an agenda tonight.
Excuse me. Develop plan / ordinance for part-time rentals. Pay lakes, solar / energy farming.
I had someone call about Airbnb or VRBO rentals, part-time rentals. So I did ask Carmen at the city what their plan was, and she sent that to me so I can send it down.
That, I know in some areas, in some cities, that has become a problem. People remodel homes that are near national / international venues. And some of the concerns are in the neighborhoods that they seem to have a lot of people coming and going, is what I had heard on that. And in some cases, I was told that some Airbnb renters were like, you can only do this 4 times a year. So I don't know. Is that the kind of thing they're talking about?
They have purchased a property with a main house that they're going to remodel as the main cabin, and they're going to live there right now, and they want to add 4 cabins eventually as VRBOs type. But more like an Airbnb VRBO instead of a campground, because I asked that question.
Okay. Do we have any part-time rental policy now?
No,
How large a piece of property are they talking about doing this on?
I can't recall right off the top of my head. I want to say a 6.5 acre lot or parcel.
Per cabin? For each of the cabins they're wanting to build?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how would that differ from people just having rental homes out in the county? Which there's a lot of them. I mean, people rent homes for that. If they're big enough for the piece of property, if they're not going below our standards on the property, I don't know.
So would they split it off like we would have them do now? Would it be rezoned since it's kind of a business? I think that's the questions they were getting in.
I don't think we require rental homes to be zoned as a business. I think if they split it off as individual
Lots.
properties and they meet all the guidelines, I don't really see how that would be much different than someone else renting a rental property,
Right.
in my opinion.
That's, I feel the same way. I don't
If
see a
we-
difference.
If we take a developer that owns 20 lots in Lexington and wants to build a rental on those lots, we require them to get an R1, correct?
He wants to build what?
Yeah, we would require to get our one.
Why wouldn't we in this case?
I'm assuming we are, aren't we? Or are we not?
No, we're requiring him to get R1 because of the lot size and all that, right?
Yes.
This, if they meet the acreage requirement
And the road frontage.
and the road frontage, like I said,
They'll have to redeed it though.
yes, they'll have to make a deed for each property. But beyond that, what do you think, John?
Well, I think under existing rules, you won't be able to go on one piece of property and build 6 or 8 essentially rental houses. So that they would have to comply with how many you can set off of a right of way or whatever through it.
You said they're gonna be 6-acre lots each, right?
I don't think they're asking for information.
Are you saying 6-acre lots apiece, or are you saying one 6-acre lot with multiple buildings on
Well, that's what they're asking, but
it? They
I-
own one 6-acre lot,
I can't remember exactly the acreage, but yes, I want to say that.
and they're wanting to build multiple
Yes, but they would have,
dwelling units
if,
on.
but if we told them that our split policy and road frontage and acreage, that they'd have to do it like that, then we could say that.
I mean, unless they're wanting to change it to commercial, they would have to do that. Right.
I think so.
Don't you need to think about whether or not that's in the county and a septic system? Or if it's someplace that has a sewer system?
It would, the one I'm speaking of would be septic. It wouldn't be in a regional sewer district.
Then it would certainly take an acre with the required frontage or an easement, right?
Yes.
Sure.
And under separate deeds, one resident
Pretty,
per parcel.
right?
Well, kind of summing up thoughts. Anything short of one rental per property, then we would have to look at something different.
Well, you're still looking at what, 4 splits? So 4 is the max you would be able to put on it.
Right.
You would have to have two of them basically on an existing road and two of them off of a right of way. If you put a easement, would that not be right? Wasn't that what we decided to be able to do two?
Yes. And they were wanting to do 4 or 6.
4.
I think if they could meet the requirements and with frontages and acreage and septic.
You have to let them.
Right.
I don't see how you can stop them if they meet the zoning requirements and frontage and or easements.
Right.
Okay.
They're gonna build them, and what they do with them, I guess, is their business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a good way to sum that up. Just what Mark said.
Okay.
Anything short of meeting our current zoning requirements, we'd have to hear something more.
Okay.
What about pay lakes?
We have someone who is inquiring about that also. She has been in front of the board at some point to get a market out on her property, a small type farm market. And now she wants to start a pay lake. And I told her at first to check with DNR first, and she did and didn't get very far, so wanted to know what our ordinances were. And I don't believe that we have anything on it.
Where's this at?
I don't remember.
Huh?
I don't remember the exact position.
What was that last one, what DNR said?
She didn't get very far with it. That's all she told me. And then she called me back a couple times.
So is she wanting us to put our throat on the neck of DNR? And give-
I don't know how to direct her.
Is she zone commercial now?
No. Agriculture.
She could potentially, I guess, get a conditional use variance as a rural business, as long as she qualifies for a rural business, but that's an acceptable use with a conditional use variance.
I guess you would have to come to the BZA for a
Correct.
percent what she was wanting to do to the BZA.
Or with, yeah, for a conditional use, it would be,
And she's fine with that. I just didn't know if there was any other kind of licenses or something that she has to do that I needed to tell her about.
I would think she may have to do something with the state. DNR, I'm sure,
Oh,
probably
yes.
wants some kind of a permit.
I'm sure she'll have to
And
have some
that-
liability insurance and,
I have to have a state permit to sell minnows in my store. I have to have a state permit to sell trees and shrubbery out of my parking lot. I'm sure if they're transporting fish from out of state, she's probably going to have some kind of permit.
Okay.
I would think. I don't know that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I initially asked her to get in contact with the DNR and give her numbers and stuff for that. But
Ultimately, she's selling fish.
Mhm.
I would think there's something there from DNR. I think you could call Indianapolis and you might call Hardy Lake and
Mhm.
get someone to answer you.
Well, there might be limitations on the size of the lake, and
Or
amount of fish and
whether
count numbers and,
whether it's a totally contained pond or if it flows into an active stream and stuff like that. Flows into a blue water stream, I think they would have different rules probably. But I don't know that. Like I said, I know for me to sell minnows in a tank in my store, I have a Indiana bait dealer's license that I have to buy and renew every few years.
So do I just tell her the step with us would be a conditional use variance
Yes.
application,
Yes,
and that she should probably go ahead and check into her state permits.
yes.
Okay.
What would we be deciding on a play like on?
Just giving her a conditional use variance
Is it an agricultural?
on an agricultural piece. She said that's a,
If it would, I have to look, I don't know exactly what Article 11 is, but that a conditional use is permitted in agricultural for a rural business as defined in Article 11. I'm looking for Article 11 right now, but I'm just thinking that that might be something that she would have to get a conditional use.
Well, if it's defined as a rural use, do we rule on, yeah, that's a rural use?
It's, well, a rural business is a conditional use that's already in the ordinance when granting a conditional use. It's not one of those that automatically says you can do this.
Okay.
She would have to qualify, if we could qualify it as a rural business, she could get a conditional use for that in an agricultural zone.
I know in the past, we had a gentleman who made horse saddles and wanted to sell them. Wanted to sell them out of his barn on his property. Had no other employees. That's a rural use. We said someone who wanted to put out a vegetable, where you buy. They came to us for that. That was a rural use.
And she did say that she has been in front of the board for a farm market.
We had someone who come to us that wanted to produce doilies and some other stuff. That one got a little gray. They were trying to tie it back to an agricultural use, but they had an employee. And sometimes having that employee makes a difference. So that's something to think about. Want to take care of that for you, Joe?
yeah. No.
What about, where we at with the pay? Like, say, need to come back to us?
Yeah, conditional use variance application.
Okay. What about solar energy, farming, all that?
There is a paper in front of you that Carla started.
God damn. Thank you. Hey, John.
Yes.
Yeah, those guys out there want to speak to us about anything.
I don't know. I can ask them. We've got some members out in the crowd. Are you wanting to address the board for something?
I'm not real sure. I didn't hear anything about the solar farm until about an hour ago.
Okay.
And saw a meeting on it, and really just wanted to see what it was about. I've not heard anything about what was really going on.
We are,
I mean,
I can't say ordinance, but our ordinances are empty of even what defines a solar farm. You know, some areas around us have had issues where 100 acres wanted to be put in a solar farm. It's caused some great concern.
It's a big concern of mine. I mean, I'm a farmer and would like to voice my opinion if it's the right place to do that. I'm not sure if you're voting on something tonight or.
No, we're not. That today's not.
Okay.
The way this typically happens, and I'm glad you clarified that, is we'll propose an ordinance. They'll actually go to the county commissioners. And they'll have the hearings and record opposition, record favorability. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, at some point, I would like to voice my opinion, coming from the public. Or is a solar panel opposed to something you're going to vote on? I'm not sure that tonight's the night for that, but I'm just here to kind of listen and see what's.
Here's where we're at. At this point, our county has no ordinance that addresses it whatsoever. And us as a board have decided we need to put something in the ordinance to address it.
Right.
Otherwise, at this point, I think someone could show up here and do it, and we have nothing to stop them with.
Right. Well, that's kind of my opinion on the solar farm. It's not actually a farm, but they use the farming as a way to get around some of the board rules and regulations and some of the tax breaks that they can get by categorizing it as a farm rather than, a business. And to me, it's more of a solar factory than a solar farm, personal opinion.
We had talked as a board that we do need something. Otherwise, I don't think we have any way to stop someone that come in here and did this right now.
As right now, it'd be like Wild West.
What's that?
As right now, it'd be Wild West if somebody came in here.
Well, I mean, I would be all for what you're saying. Put some kind of ordinance in place to.
And what we talked about, something that's larger, and we'll just call it alternative energy because we got wind, solar, and actually there's now small nuclear, there's hydrogen, different systems that we've never dreamed of before.
Right.
So we're talking about trying to come up with something to put to the ordinance that says alternative energy, which could be solar, wind, whatever. My idea was if it's larger than what would service the needs of a single home or a farm, it needs to go into a category that needs to be addressed.
I agree with that.
And that's kind of what we've been talking about here for a couple, 2 or 3 months. And I think we're about to get something together to send to the commissioners and let them vote on it and make it an ordinance.
Randy, that is the process, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I would like to be involved just to listen to hear what you guys have to come up with. Basically, that's just kind of like to know what's going on. Because as a farmer, stand to lose a lot of ground. A lot of farmers in the county can lose a lot of ground in a hurry with this all the time.
And like I said, this was not supposed to be public hearing tonight for this, but we as a group are still searching. I know I've talked with people from other counties. It has a lot of friends, has a lot of enemies, has a lot of truths and a lot of mistruths. To me, it seems like there's more. Well, at the end of this, 10 years from now, X, Y, and Z is gonna happen. Yeah,
I know that they came in a few years ago and a lot of the ground around my area had been contracted for the solar panels. A lot of ground that I farm had been in these contracts, and that kind of fizzled out last year. I don't know what actually happened, but they voided a lot of contracts, and a couple farms were sold that were under contract that I'm out of. But it kind of, like they just slipped in and got all these older landowners to sign the contracts, and kind of under the table, nobody even knew about it until it was already signed and done.
I guess, what is your name? So we
Cody Chambliss.
I called you Jeff long ago, I'm sorry, Cody.
what's your name again?
Cody Chambliss. I live out on, it's in Randy's area. I live on 203.
Okay.
Between 256
Speak for the board, but, a lot of certain people don't like it, certain people do. If people own the ground, and they want to sell to a solar farm or something like that, we're not here to limit them from being able to do that. It just has to fit, just like any other, just like a subdivision or what else would fit in the county.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's no different than somebody want to put a subdivision in. It needs to go through the right steps and be able to let people give their opinion on it.
and in developing these ordinances, and sometimes this is the most difficult in my mind. So we try to develop them without the county and the individuals in the county being exploited. Sometimes people come in a community, play a good song, a lot of people, yeah, and then the reality is different. So part of this ordinance is to be sure that if promises are made, promises are kept.
Well, I think it's great you guys are looking into it before something happens.
And like I said, there'll be, at some point, some public hearings where you can come in and testify,
Right.
give all your examples, give all your information.
Randy knows anytime there's something for him, and I can speak at the commissioner meeting, and I didn't know what, this first planning commission meeting I've been to, I didn't know what the situation was. I just saw it and thought I'd do it.
Well, if anything, we share your concern.
Appreciate that.
Thanks. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just here, I was looking for some clarification on the discussion about the splits. I know it's probably not like a done deal or anything, but is that for anything zoned anything, or is that just for agriculture? Is that R1, 2, and 3, or?
We'll be, if you want to wait, we'll be coming up on that, kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But again, the same process applies.
Yeah,
We're making a recommendation to the county commissioners that we need to take a look at the splits and two fronts. We've got a lifetime end cap on them right now. Should that be changed? Should the number you can split at one time be changed? And should there be a landmark time that says, okay, been 2 years, you can now split again? That being said, you've got the ebb and flow of things. So that's kind of where we're at, but we got that coming up here in just a minute.
I think to answer your question, I think it would apply to any zoning, but it's going to be more prevalent to an agricultural zoning. I
Well, I
believe.
know that's the example that keeps being used, you know, if you have 100 acres and 10 grandkids, you know, which is totally reasonable. But if somebody came and asked to have 75 acres zoned R1 for subdivision and then decided they didn't want to do that, they just laid out 4 splits every year. That, I'm the president of the drainage board, that takes the oversight from the drainage board and this board for controlling what gets built.
What's proposed is 4 splits every 2 years.
Right.
Um,
And is that only until the road frontage is consumed? Like, say it's R1, let's just say it's R1 or R2. Once the road frontage is consumed, it's over. They can't put an easement back and just continue to develop 4 lots every period.
You can, if the road frontage and acreage applied, you can put 2, if they had the right acreage, you can put an easement in and build 2 homes or develop 2 parcels off of that. One easement will give you 2 parcels.
That's on an agriculture, correct?
That's on agriculture, and I think it would be the same on R1, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
So-
I mean, we just do the county, like anything that is in the county, whatever, like that's, we only cover the county. So if there is, yeah, if it's agricultural and then this in R1, that would be, but I mean, we're gonna kind of get into that. There's some other things that we've kind of looked at that I'm hoping to be a situation where we're always at least coming to her. It may not be in front of the board, but before anybody just willy-nilly does that, that we'll be able to do that. So, well, hopefully to address every concern. Nothing's going to be decided tonight. We're kicking around the ideas. And when we are coming to that, obviously the notices will be put out there and on all that. So,
But it wouldn't matter if it's being serviced off of its own frontage or if it was being serviced off of an easement. That would count as one of your splits.
Well, I know, but if you're doing it 4 splits every period and not as a minor or major subdivision, there's no oversight of what that easement is. You know, it could just be a gravel lane, and you're back to the Indiana land stuff.
It's got to be a 50-foot easement.
I know, but then it's gonna be like everything else, it's gonna be a gravel lane, but, you know, you're stepping it back out of a subdivision, and you're losing a lot of oversight and control. Everybody, it's not just the drainage, you know, there's no drainage plans, that could be a situation, this board doesn't get to say anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of.
As we
I know it's
develop,
hard to paint with a broad brush and cover everybody.
as we develop these and as we send them to the commissioners, I think your voice needs to stand up to be sure that there's not any unintended consequences as it happened previously. We were just looking for the, kind of to take the cap off the permanency of
Which
this
is neat, I think.
and make it to where it's more operable. But then, like you're saying, as the final document hopefully will cover what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know why somebody that's got zoned ground R1 or R2 would need 4 additional splits every 2 years. I mean,
Right.
now we haven't made the decision on anything
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
So that's why I'm just saying that
I would-
that's, yeah.
I think it's more, what we're thinking is agricultural, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But I guess there could be a piece that out there that is R1 that would,
Well,
Yeah.
their requirements of their lot sizes and road frontage are a lot different, correct? On our
That's a
ones,
70-foot lot. I mean, it's a lot smaller.
yeah,
It matters whether it's on septic or sewer, you know.
Right.
I mean, I know.
if it's on sewer, it's a totally different deal.
Right.
I guess if it was R1 and they wanted to use our road frontage and lot size requirement, I guess they could do that. I don't know.
Like, let's say it's 75 acres and it's 300 feet wide on the county road. You just split that 4 times, or whatever 70 would end up being.
How many feet of road frontage?
Let's just say 300.
Okay, and 300, you could get
Let's
2
say
off.
350. So we're going 70.
Okay, you could get, that's something
Right.
else we're getting ready to address, is the easement issue to go along with that. Say it was 300 and you made two lots, 150-foot road frontage each. You could bring in one easement back and service two lots back, bring in another easement back and service two.
Extending the first one,
Excuse me?
just extending the first easement, or it'd be totally?
No, have to be
entrance to the road?
Well, Mark,
Well, at this point, it would be two separate corridors.
that's what I thought. And you could service two lots off that. So basically, you could get 6 lots off of that, but it will not allow you to do that immediately, I guess.
Period.
But once you've done that, you're pretty well done.
So the rest of the place is just agriculture.
Or you would have to come and ask if you want to do something different, or I guess adjoin to those easements and make a road back. By my thinking, you'd have to ask for a subdivision, whether it be a minor or major, and you would have to bring that road up to the county specs before they could
And I
ask
think
for a minor subdivision.
I think the split rule will have to lead into the subdivision rule, because I think that's where it's, if we don't, I'm not gonna be able to keep track of it.
And if you've already zoned R1, all the things you just said, we're able to do without contacting the drainage board, this board again, they just went and got building permits.
No, you still need to get a building. If you're gonna build something, you still need to build
Yeah,
something, so
that's
you have to do
what
this. I will just say that what I have proposed here is that there's no blanket that you can just split and do whatever you want, that it at least has to come to the office. And then how many splits? I mean, we're gonna talk about that. That's something I put in here, that there will be some sort of oversight when people want to split. Again, may not have come to the board to get anything, but it'll at least come in here, because of what I'm asking them to consider is that no one is going to automatically just be able to do this. They still at least need to come here to the office, let Stacy know what's going on, and she can make a decision, an administrative decision, whether to go ahead and allow that, or if she thinks it's something that's going to cause some problems. Because we don't want to get back into the same thing that caused the split rule to begin with, where everybody just does it and no one knows anything until it's kind of too late. So, yeah, but we're just kind of getting there.
And it still has to go through a percolation test too, John.
Well, not if it's on sewer.
I'm sorry.
Not if it's on sewer.
You're correct.
The one we're talking
Right.
about. The hypothetical one we've been talking about is on sewer.
If it's on sewer, well, I mean, anybody can do what they want, but I doubt they're gonna want to use 1 acre lots. I doubt it, but they
Yeah,
could,
Probably like a quarter acre.
probably a 1/4 acre. So that excludes it from this. Then they still have to come ask for a minor or a major subdivision, I believe.
Yes. That would make sense.
I guess it's not gonna let anybody do a subdivision without coming and getting approval. But if someone had a large farm with a lot of frontage, yeah, I guess they could go every 2 years and split
Right.
4 1 acre lots off. But I don't think that's gonna be done a lot. I don't think any developer wants to work at that pace. I don't believe, but they could. But I don't know if that's a problem or puts a big strain on an area if they've got the proper road frontage. I don't think, in my opinion, but yeah, they just can't come and bust roads back, do 4 splits and then double off of those things and get more lots. You can't do that. That's,
Where we at? We gotta keep moving forward.
I don't, well, I'm not sure we've talked about necessarily anything, so we want to go back to the solar, to kind of go through what, a kind of a starting ground. I mean, I can kind of maybe summarize it, I guess, if you want to. The purpose that we want to get a solar ordinance is to enable development while protecting drainage, road infrastructure, farm productivity, and neighboring property. For our purposes, it would just be applying to unincorporated Scott County. Obviously, we do not get to tell the city what to do, and there's probably not going to be a whole lot of solar farms. And this particular recommendation is that there be kind of 3 tiers of solar. The first tier just being less than 25 kilowatts. That would be a rooftop or ground mounted. That would not need any special permission. That's just for personal use. That would be permitted in agricultural, industrial, and residential. A medium commercial, which then that doesn't say what we'd have to figure out. That's something we would come up with as what would be considered a medium commercial. That absolutely would not be permitted in any residential. It would need to be a special exception for both agricultural and industrial. And then the tier 3, which would be the large commercial utility scale. So medium commercial probably just maybe for business wants to run on solar or something, but then the large scale would be the person wants to put what we call the solar farms and wants to send the energy to other people to sell it. Again, that would be absolutely not available for residential. It still would be a special exception for agricultural and industrial. Then it's got on this, you can read those, suggested some like minimum setbacks that we would request. Maximum height of panels could be 20 feet. Again, these are just way generated. We can change these. There would be fencing and safety required for anything that was tier 2 or tier 3. Lockable access gates required. There would need to be a glare analysis required if when 1,000 feet of a roadway or aviation facility. Mitigation required if glare affects public safety. As far as drainage, an engineer certified drainage plan would be required. Must not reduce capacity of regulated drains. And topsoil preservation and restoration would be required. They would also have to come in with a decommissioning plan. So basically when they were set to, it would expire, the removal of the panels, the racks, the fencing, the access roads, underground cable removal up to 36 inches unless waived, and restoration to agricultural suitability. They would need to require some financial assurance. That would be required before building permit issuance based on a third-party estimate and would be reviewed every 5 years. Would be an abandonment clause. If there's 12 months of non-operation, it constitutes abandonment. Would need to give notice and a cure period before requiring enforcement on that. The BZA can grant some waivers on that for other of those things, but that would just have to come before here. So what it suggests here is that for tier 2 and tier 3, our board would have to confirm that the zoning district is eligibility, the setback compliance, drainage plan approved by county surveyor, decommissioning plan is complete, financial assurance submitted, and no request regulates utility service or transmission. So just make sure that, that's like, they still have to do some utility. We can't interfere with utility easements and things like that.
Drainage plan might need to go in front of the drainage board.
So that again is just kind of a summary of, it pulled from some Indiana law just on reasonable restrictions under IC 36728 and IC 8142 for default commercial solar standards. So anyway, I was hoping that that just kind of be a starting spot that we can think. I don't know if we want to wait for the full board, if you want some,
I think we need to address this. Everybody just calls it solar. But while we're doing this, I think we need to address other types of energy that can be produced. Let's do it once and get it taken care of.
I agree.
Whether that's,
right, well, yeah, the
whether that's
windmills.
wind, or like I said, there is other types of energy generators that are out there now. I think it needs to be language that just says energy production, whether that's solar, wind, whatever.
It could be, I guess, if you want to, though for solar panels, I mean, if you want to say there are only certain, the only one I can think of is wind. I mean, obviously someone's going to use a windmill, they're probably not going to be able to keep it under 25 feet. So we'd have to kind of carve out just to make sure if it's going to be solar like this or it's going to be a wind.
Well, like John was saying earlier, there's miniature nuclear
They're,
plants now.
they're doing miniature nuclear reactors
Yeah.
now that are this big. In 10 years from now, that may be a big thing.
And it could be. I mean, we would just need to, again, we
20
could just add that
solar
in
was
here to
nothing.
say what are going to be the restrictions on a wind, on if someone's going to do that or any other. Yeah, we
I
just need
think
to add that in
this
there.
ordinance needs to just address any type of energy production.
I agree. Because if not, you're just gonna be chasing your tail.
Yeah, because there's gonna be something 10 years from now that we never dreamed of.
Well, the technology moves faster than meetings.
Right. I mean, there could be hydrogen generators people are using that work. Who knows what it might be?
Might want to not live next door to it, but might work.
Like I said, if we just pass solar, someone comes in with something else, we don't have anything to stop them and make them come to the board and even talk about what they're doing. They can just do it.
Right. Like I said, we can do that. Obviously, we're just here on discussion. We aren't, as they going to vote on anything right now. So we would just need to,
And I think that's a decent starting framework right there. But
anybody, I was going to say it. Yeah.
But I think it needs to cover all types of energy production. I don't know what those would be, but
Can I have one point of clarification on number 7, abandonment? If someone doesn't use that for 12 months, it's considered abandoned.
Yes.
Does that, that doesn't include change of hands, does it?
No, I'm envisioning, I think what it's meaning here is, say a company did a medium tier and they went out of business and didn't use it anymore. Or a company came in and did do the tier 3 and did the whole thing. And then for whatever reason, they abandoned it, that it would be, I think it's not really meaning the personal, like, oh, you haven't used it for a year, which I kind of hard to say, but I think it's just more of like talking about a situation where a company is no longer using it or it's not being productive.
The abandonment, does IDEM have any? They come in and leave us with a mess. Does IDEM get involved at that point in time?
So, pardon?
If they come in and leave us with a mess, ground covered, they filed bankruptcy. Does Indiana Department of Environmental Management, IDEM, get involved then?
That I'm not sure. Obviously, we would probably sue the company that was responsible for that, because that was part of them to even getting the permit through us, was that they had the plan to disassemble and restore it.
And I assume IDEM has to give them approval.
I think they have, what she was trying to convey is you have to have a, something, don't they have to have money set back? for
Yes, that's
end
where
of life?
they're gonna have that financial, yeah, that's reviewed every 5 years. I mean,
Yeah.
if in this scenario, again, we could say every 2 years, this is just something that I like to start,
So
but yeah,
whether or
you could
not that's a
say,
bond or what?
All right. What's our next step here? What do you need for us to do?
I don't think there's really anything to do necessarily other than, I mean, we've got this started. I mean, as far as the solar, I mean, the things that you want to change, or do you want to wait for the full board to have it in here? Do you think you want maybe, I don't know, an engineer or something to look over it, but at least to get it just started? This isn't going to be, I wasn't even intending this necessarily to be something we all agree on right now. It's,
I think this is a good start.
Yeah.
I
and you
think
want to
there's-
add in basically for other,
I think there's a whole lot of language in here that we don't need in our ordinance.
right. And so I'll just say, this is a working copy. So some of it was just saying, hey, this is like, this, it wouldn't be the actual ordinance. This isn't, yeah, this is just little talking points to say, hey, this is what it's trying to accomplish.
Does this working document make it to the commissioners?
No.
Okay.
No, until we have what we want it to be, I would want to type it up into the actual ordinance form. That literally would be going into the ordinance book. And that's what we would send.
Are the commissioners aware that we are working on this?
One is,
This
One is,
no, I haven't talked to the other two commissioners.
I just wonder if we need to update everybody, just saying, hey, here's where we're at. We're maybe a little further along than what you think we are. Within a couple of meetings, we could have something ready to go, in my mind. I think we need to have them have some idea to train us on the track.
I did not want to bring it up to the other commissioners yet until this board had a handle on what they wanted to do,
That's
because,
that's your field, not mine.
yeah,
I'm happy with that. I'm looking at it, where we looked at every which way, but then the commissioners get it, and now they gotta look at it every which way. 3 months is now 8 months.
yeah.
I wouldn't want to see that.
I didn't necessarily want it to go to Facebook with misinformation
right.
about what we're doing until we could answer questions.
That's the best I've heard. I think when we have people who are interested in, we can give them more concrete than I do.
Right, exactly. I prefer that, yeah, but we said it, we will have what it's going to be and our rationale for this. And it goes directly there. Yeah, again, I'm already kind of afraid people are going to say, this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to do. And then once again, it's going to go in that it's going to be that game of telephone and it's going to, who knows by the last person who hears
It's a
it.
hot topic, one way or another. It's a hot topic.
Yeah.
And I just think that maybe our board needs to wrap their head around it before.
I promise I'm not gonna go start any involved rumors. Just
No.
hear what you guys are talking about.
I'm not worried about you. I think everybody here knows who I'm talking about, but
If we could get, I guess something assembled to what you think it needs to look like going to the commissioners.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. And I guess it just for the board, then I'll just say if this is at least as far as the solar part, I mean, and then I'll get something to you guys before, yes, we don't really have a meeting necessarily on other things, then I need to know that so I don't want to get into this, we're going circle again.
Right.
Is this restrictions something you are okay with me putting in a form and saying a small tier that doesn't need anything that's less than 25 kilowatts?
Yes.
A medium, I can probably shore that up a little
Take it
bit,
to
to
go.
say whatever we would consider a medium tier in
Yes.
that. And then I'll add in some language though, like I said, to deal with other,
Mark, you got your heart with that?
or we could call it a heading of renewable energy and then just say this is for solar, it's this for solar.
Okay, let's just say small tier is for personal use, below 25 kilowatts. Medium commercial, would we consider that maybe on-site industrial that is supplying their own factory or something like that?
Yeah,
And large scale would be something that is being sold,
yes.
put out into the grid and not used internally. I don't know. That's just an idea how to structure them.
Anything beyond what they use internally is solar.
Yes. I think we would consider that a large tier then,
A for profit.
a for profit.
How about the setbacks? Does that sound appropriate? You want to change some of those, or is that the note on this is that these setbacks are consistent with Indiana County norms.
Where did you get these setbacks from? Is this what some other counties doing or?
I just generated it through, actually I did this with AI and just said, hey, this is what we're doing in county. So,
She said it goes with Indiana norms.
yeah, and it says planning justification would be setbacks are consistent with Indiana County norms and are not prohibitive.
Those look like really big setbacks to me, but I don't know.
They do, don't they?
But, and when I look at those reflecting mirrors,
Yeah,
setting in a car, trying to,
but maybe that would only apply to the large commercial.
Yeah, because we wouldn't have room for
You ain't gonna have that
on
on
residential.
residential or a medium commercial. They're not gonna have, their lot may not be possibly big enough. You can put a pretty, whatever, it's a factory or manufacturing of some kind, to be 500 feet from all sides, from any non-participating residence, or 300 feet from a property line. That takes a great big lot to do that.
I mean, obviously we can do this, but I'm also thinking that obviously anybody that's coming to solar has to come before the board anyway, except for personal use. And maybe if they need a variance as well on those, we could
For
deal
the
with it
setbacks.
then. But, if they're saying, hey, that, 300 feet, is it going to work for us? And then the BZA would have to obviously consider that. So it's not hard and fast, This is just being like, this is what would comply with the ordinance. And if you come before our board and you comply with everything we said, the board should, allow that to happen. If they're asking for variances, that may be saying like, well, no, we can't do that.
Do you remember what Clark County said?
No. Would you look and see what Clark County says?
And the other question I'm going to have is on the decommissioning and the financial assurance. How is that being received?
Clark County does have something about that in there.
I mean, is that a bond?
John, you ain't saying nothing. Weigh in here, buddy.
Okay, so
Mandy
it's.
Plant, what do you got?
Says Clark County allows solar energy development, but has adopted some of the strictest commercial scale solar regulations in southern Indiana. These rules apply primarily to utility scale and commercial solar farms, not typical rooftop or small agricultural. Let's see here if it's. They said their minimum setbacks are 100 feet from any non-participating property line, 650 feet from the nearest non-participating residence, 1,250 feet from the nearest residence for power substations, 650 feet for solar inverters from non-participating homes. Said those are some of the largest setbacks in Indiana. Clark County limits total fenced solar acreage to 4,000 acres countywide. So I guess, that's taking all of that. That includes all commercial solar combined, not per project. Fencing around all commercial solar facilities, minimum height 5 feet. Screening must be year-round. Required vegetation berms or equivalent visual barriers. The screening may be waived only if the project is 625 plus feet from the affected properties. Got wildlife corridors. Developers must maintain native grasses or pollinator-friendly vegetation, prevent erosion and runoff, avoid bare soil between rows of panels. Projects must have emergency access road, emergency key boxes, first responder training coordination, clearly marked electrical infrastructure. They must also have a decommissioning plan, financial assurance, either a bond or an escrow, timeline for removal and land restoration and ongoing insurance coverage. Clark County does not have a specific commercial wind energy standards. So wind projects will be evaluated under general zoning rules. That's kind of the summary of that. That they gave me.
Yeah, I think this is a good start. See if we can.
We're missing a lot of stuff yet.
Right. See if you can put something together that we might look at before we send to the board. Email it to everybody, let everybody read it and
Okay.
reflect back to you what they think.
And do we want to make this like an additional section to the ordinance and not put it underneath something? I'm kind of thinking in my mind, we should do an additional, like a new.
I think we ought to just make it its own
Yes.
zoning rather than tie it to.
New or old business, is what you're saying?
Well, and I think it should be like that because it's going to cover all three: residential, agricultural, and industrial.
Are you thinking of having it after everything else is exhausted?
Yes,
Let's
just
get
because it's already numbered. I mean, then I'd have to really go through and.
right, we
Yes,
can
we
get our
could, but-
guests out of here and then go from there.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would ask, something like that, even though I have an individual copy, I'd like to see a big copy, that way we can kind of all
Okay.
focus.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that on the screen, so I'll have to be somebody a little savvier. Did JR do that the last time, I
Yeah.
think? And it's emailed, so maybe if JR's here, then he'll be able to do it.
It's not a deal breaker, but
Yeah,
I think we keep pushing the gas.
Okay, move forward with that. Compile something. If we can get a look at it before next meeting and anybody on the board can put in their input, what they
right,
think,
yes.
before we get there that night, and everybody will be ready to make their adjustments to it, or any adjustments you think you need made, bring it before the board and let's talk about it.
Right.
keep it going.
Maybe by then I can get access to this printer.
There you go.
Yeah.
I kinda
We'll
like
make
that
some
what
changes
you're
to
saying.
see
Park
what we
County's
can do on
down
that.
there, the
Okay.
actual screen.
Yeah.
Which we don't have, we need to have something.
Where we at on our agenda?
You're the one with,
Can I say
Yeah.
something real quick, Mr. Green? Are we going to ask, like Cody said, he wanted to weigh in on that before we have something to send over? Are we gonna let the general public come in and talk to us, to give their opinion, or are we just gonna put something in writing before they come in?
We're gonna try to get something in writing, and have it at the next meeting where we're talking about it here once again. I guess anyone has the option to come in
Okay,
and hear what we're talking about.
okay.
So now I want to kind of get careful because one is one and two is two. So are we talking about having an open meeting for the discussion of the development of the solar use, electronic use policy?
Right. I mean,
next
yes, I guess what I'm envisioning is that, yes, it would be, if we get this form, we want to put it on the agenda, we would have, I guess the public just wants to come and comment on that. But again, it would not be, we're just sending an offer to the commissioners. The commissioners are the one who makes the decision on it. So that's really, I don't want to get too bogged down on it, because we're not making a decision. We're just saying this is something we would.
Here's where my brain goes. The next meeting, we'll have what I'm going to call a rough draft. Maybe better than a rough.
Yeah.
We'll have copies available for the public or have them up on a website. Anyone wish to comment can comment.
Yeah.
It's not a discussion. It's not an interrogation. It's not a condemnation. I don't like this because of this. I don't like this because of that. I like this because of that. That allows us to take the notes,
That's, yeah. We
throw
can
them
kinda do
back onto the rough draft, come back to us and say, hey, here's what the rough draft was. Here's where it developed at the last meeting. Then we can blend those two. Okay.
Yeah, we could do it maybe kind of like we do, like a first reading, a second
Well,
reading
if
type
our
of
draft-
thing there. We could say.
If our draft is agreeable to everyone here, and no one in the crowd brings up anything that changes our mind, we could go ahead and vote on it to send it on to the commissioners that night. Right?
I think so.
Or if enough of the board says, no, we need to work on this again.
Right. Yeah, and if that meeting, the public comes and they're saying, we like it to be just 15 feet on the solar panels, to give us a reason why it should be, that should be changed. Because it's clear, it's not about whether we're going to make the recommendation, it's just what the recommendation is going to be. So,
Yes.
All right.
yeah, but if it's agreeable, and then, yeah, we could probably just go ahead and send it on.
Okay. I think we've decided what we're gonna do about solar or alternative energy.
Can I ask you, what is your concern with solar farms?
I don't have a problem with solar. I mean, solar's a great thing, but there's other places that can put it rather than taking farm ground. We're losing farm ground at, an unbelievable rate. There's houses going in, subdivisions going in. And, there's not a lot of farm ground left in Scott County. I think there's better places that can put the solar panels than taking farm ground.
Where would that be at?
On rooftops, there's plenty of buildings to put it on. I've read studies where they put it on lakes. They get a double reflection off the lake. It even does better being on water than it does in ground. I mean, put it in the desert where you can't grow anything. That's all there is sun. There's just better places they could put it than on farm ground.
How
You
much,
have to, sorry,
Go ahead.
Part of the, I mean, here's an issue that a lot of people don't take in consideration. Is you've got to be so close to a substation. You know, if I go out here, here, I'll use this for example. If we wanted to put solar panels out here by Tri-Hawk, there's a substation there. That would make sense. If I wanted to put solar panels out at the transfer station, it doesn't make sense because there's no substation around. The cost of trying to put in a substation for the amount of solar panels you would get, it just doesn't fit. And I think that's some of the issue that some of these farms are going. And I guess I'm trying to kind of set your mind a little bit at ease, because I mean, unless you're near a substation somewhere, you better be planning on putting a couple 100 acres in
The
solar.
agreement I was talking about that was signed up for a contract, they, I don't know if you're familiar, but they kept it pretty well hush hush.
Yeah.
Sinclair Farm, I mean, that was signed up, they told me, you know, if the solar panel decides to build tomorrow, I've got to move my cattle and all of that. Kendall's Farm, Marvin Rohde signed some ground, I mean, there's a big
Yeah.
strip up through there.
But in,
So how, I mean, it must have been something appealing to them right there.
it was, that was more or less, honestly, to lock people in, to keep people from selling out to other people, to other entities.
Okay. I understand that.
Pretty much a non-compete.
So you brought up what you had talked about with solar panels and Tri-Hawk. Which tier would that fall into? Would that be the middle tier where the county's using that? Or-
Well, that would, we're not talking, first off, we're not talking about doing that. I mean, I did investigate to see how it would, if it would help the county. But
And if the county can use it, that's great, but a lot of this power is going to other cities that, you know, like you said, they're selling it, they're not using it in county.
right,
So,
right. But that would be like a mid-low. Does that answer your question?
How much ground do you farm?
As far as row crops, 300 and some acres, I've got 100 head of cattle, so I've got probably 100 acres of pasture. I rent quite a bit of ground, I'm around between 300 and 400 acres. And the solar panel had come to us and asked, and, you know, we didn't sign up for it, but a lot of my neighbors did. And this has been several years ago. I don't know how long the contract was, but I know it ended last year.
I think a lot of this, what's concerning a lot of us is like what you just said, you know, they can go build in the desert or whatever. If investors come up with the money and they want to invest here, with Indiana law being what it is, we can't stop them. We just have to figure out what rules they have to work under to do it here. I think it's pretty accurate, ain't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
We just want to make
It's
sure
all
they
maybe
have
for now.
rules that they have
Right,
to
yeah.
abide by if they decide they're going to invest the money here.
there's been a bill that got pretty high in the state just 4 months ago that would abolish all this we're talking about.
Yeah.
Then it goes by one state rule and county government can't override it.
And there's certain times that the county, we could be sued for, and especially like right now, us not having anything in place. And if somebody tried to bring something in we didn't agree with, well, maybe they want to put 50 foot off the road.
Well, if a guy
So-
comes in and wants to buy your 400 acres and you want to sell it, and we say, no, we don't want solar farms here. Now you're going to sue us.
I can understand.
You know,
And it's great what you guys are doing to put, you know, stipulations and in my opinion, you ought to put them pretty harsh to keep it out because, you know, if you need to, it's easier to do a variance to change it to allow something rather than, you know, it's easier to keep them out and then if they do come in to change things. I just feel like, stipulations ought to be pretty tough.
Well, whether they come in or not is not my concern. What I do want the ones that come in be worth it. If they come in and want a piece of property that might be good for farming, and they can run an operation on there that would provide electricity at a possibly lower cost, I see that as being worthwhile. Now, others might disagree, but a part of me says that I don't want us, being Scott County, exploited by someone in the solar business that's not at the top of the game. I don't want them to be exploited, period.
My view on it is landowners around the county, they own that land, but they may be at the end of they may have farmed it for generations, but maybe they're at the end of their line. Nobody else in their family wants to farm it, but that land has other values. I don't want to limit them to only being able to sell it to what farm ground is worth at that time. If someone else is willing to pay for it, I don't want to hem somebody in and say, this is farm ground forever. We're going to make laws to where it can't be anything else. That's not fair.
I'm not saying that either. I'm trying to preserve as long as I can.
Sure.
I hope that one day my kids can farm, they're eat up with farm, and they want to do it. But if I don't leave it for them or provide a pathway, they're not going to be able to. Young guys can't just go out and farm right now. You can't go buy a $500,000 combine, $10,000 an acre farm and say I'm a farm. I'm just trying to.
Right. It's
It's a tough. You guys have
it's a tough balance. But like I said, I don't want to limit that farmer that is at the end of his career. He has no children or that are interested in it, and he wants to retire.
I understand. Hopefully my kids can rent it. And what you said about the public, once you get the public side, that's like, I had no clue what was going on, that's why I want to come listen.
Yeah.
Once you release that to the public, you're going to get all kinds of mess. So that's what you guys are doing with keeping it quiet and coming up with a plan. Even once it goes to commissioners, if people want to come in and talk, you still have to.
I'm surprised that.
Yeah, even after it goes to us,
Yeah.
it's still not saying.
The public still gets a chance to talk.
Yeah.
I'm surprised big solar companies haven't figured out that Scott County doesn't have anything and haven't already been here.
I'm surprised too. It's all over Clark County and Jefferson County, and it's all around us.
Yeah, that's why it's very important we get something in place, because they come in here right now with nothing and we deny it. We're just gonna be asking for a lawsuit,
Right.
because they're
The
gonna
fact
say,
that we have
why,
sunshine,
what
that's
basis are you denying this? And we just be like, because of reasons.
That's the way we're gonna move on with this. Let's go to our next thing.
Yeah. I'm about to reach the limit of me not having a squirrel fit.
Okay, well, you want to go ahead and just talk about the splits, since we have someone here that they want to get out of here before we talk about easements, or unless they might want to hear that too, I guess.
At the last meeting, last two meetings, we've talked about it. I initially opposed 4 splits every 5 years. The consensus among the board last time was go to 2 years. That's the way it stood the last time we stand, and we want to move it on to the commissioners at that level.
And though I do want to that he has brought up that, though, are we wanting to just say that no one needs to come and tell us anything about it? Or the way this was drafted is that anytime there is a split, it still needs to be brought to
Yes, it's gotta be
their
brought.
attentions. So she could, if it's like this would came up with different stuff that it said you could do the 4 splits if you're going to do any, but she still need to come in here and she'd have to sign off. And it's just not a complete right though. It's not a complete right. It's just going to depend on other factors. We're not just going to say you get to do whatever you want with the land. It still need to be meeting some requirements, make sure the drainage and all that good stuff, which I know would probably go with the
Yes.
building.
Well,
But that, I don't know.
I don't think this board decides that. I think it is a right to split, but then they have to,
But we do have a subdivision ordinance. So we're gonna have to look at how our split revision fits with the subdivision ordinances also.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
I don't, which,
Subdivision
I have-
would be acre lots, right?
I have, well, there's
Yeah,
different
well-
levels of subdivisions too.
yeah, they could be.
Minor,
Yeah.
major.
because at some point in time,
Well,
there will have to be a
subdivisions
stop
also
to it
could
because
happen.
they could get themselves up to a minor subdivision by just waiting every 2 years.
Yeah, that's,
And then
that's my thing.
they've skirted the,
That's why I was a little bit longer on it, but the consensus of the board was last time 2 years. That's what we voted on.
I know, but what he's saying, I think that if there's no oversight, they're just gonna keep splitting it and then get to a minor subdivision with never having had to have
Apply
applied
for
for a
a
minor
That's why I
subdivision.
asked about the exclusion of R1, 2, and 3 from the splits rule,
Yeah.
because that would solve that.
So let me see this in my color. I come in, I get 2 splits. Or how many's, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I come back 2 years later, I get more. I come back 2 years later, I get more, which in the more would have put me in a minor subdivision. We're not counting the number of splits and say, no, you now have a minor subdivision because the way we worded the law correctly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that because we're basically saying there's no oversight. They're just gonna go and they can split it and no one knows anything about it. And no one can say anything about it. And so now they've got the little easements on here like they're supposed to be. And another easement over here, I got 2 properties over here. And you've got a minor subdivision without ever having to apply for a minor subdivision.
Did we,
And you've just got, I'm afraid this might happen. The reason that split rule came up, well, was because there was no time period on it. So
Sure.
people were splitting it up. Well, this would just delay it. They'll just say this. No one would know about it until there's a little minor subdivision and nothing anybody can do about it because they were within the rules.
And they haven't had
So-
they haven't went in front of the drainage board with a drainage plan
You could
either.
be on a 1/4 acre lot that 3/4 of that's a house and garage if it's on sewer. And you didn't have any sort of drainage approval. Well, not saying that it needs something like that, but it could. There's no oversight.
I mean, because obviously they still have the lot sizes and stuff.
should we go away from the 2 years and stretch it longer to 4?
I think we also need to look at the subdivision ordinances.
What's that?
I do
don't
think that,
would change anything. I mean, it would deter people from wanting to do that. But if you were like a hobby home builder that had a piece of ground, split it up, and you could have one you were working on the side, that 5 years. I see, it'll deter developers, but there's people that buy ground and develop it as a hobby all the time.
And I don't know that we want to deter that.
No,
We just want to make it,
but if you exclude all the R1, 2, and 3, and you have to come to this board, then you regain control of that. And they have to have a drainage plan.
Well, I'm gonna say something. The only way we regain control of anything is we keep it the way it is. Anybody who wants to split more than what we can, they gotta come here and try it down our path.
I don't think so. I would get on this. What it suggested is that there's going to still be an administrative review. She would, if they come in and somebody wants to buildable lots, we're saying this in buildable lots. They can't just do it without coming to the office for her to sign off on it and to say it's okay. We can change it to say 4, but at least she would have it. She would have record of it, and this person
Or do
has
we
done
just
this, and
need
this is
to-
what you've
do we
done.
just need to put in there on an agricultural zoning? And then R1 and all that's excluded. I can't think of a
So
piece
just
of,
do it to, okay, just for agricultural,
does that cure that problem?
How
uh,
about if we just went back to the 5 years like we talked about originally?
Because if you go R1 or R2.
And if that ain't good
your
enough,
lot sizes are
we'll
smaller,
look at it
that's
again
yeah.
later.
automatically.
You know,
subdivision type zoning
Something
anyway.
needs to be done
So
about
if you
this.
stick
If we
with
did
been
agriculture,
forever.
If we did the 5 years, they would have to come before us this board, which not necessarily would be a no, but that would be a conversation on whether or not they're building a subdivision. So maybe we should go back to the 5.
If you went to the 5 years and grandpa had a heart episode and we gotta split the place up, could they come and ask for a variance, have it done sooner?
They could,
Yeah,
they could.
they could still come to this board, but the general rule would be 5 years, yes.
But if something happened, they could ask to do it quickly.
I'll just say in times past, a little bit of that, we had a little bit of that, and there's people showed up in opposition and said, this is not the spirit of law. You know, it should never be done. They were using that against us to say, you know, this is a forever deal, and it's not. That was an oversight when they put that in, and we're trying to fix it now. Hardly anyone out. I did a lot of research on it. I looked at lots of other counties, even went out of the state, other counties in other states. And there is a couple that had the forever deal, but hardly any, and it's all over the board. It's within a calendar year, and I've seen some up to 10 years. When I initially proposed it, I picked in the middle and put 5 just to get rid of the other thing. And then we spoke about it at a meeting, and the consensus was 2. And that's where it's at. I don't think a true developer is going to buy property and try to beat the 5-year. That's not near as quick a turn. A developer's not going to do that. A hobby builder might on his own farm, but I don't know that we want to discourage that. Like I said, we don't want people coming in and wildcatting in roads. The other thing, the road rule for subdivisions kind of put a stop to what some people were doing here 20 years ago, dropping the gravel road in and putting them all down through there. We've got other things in place to stop that now by only 2 being able to use off of an easement.
But that's if you follow the subdivision rules. You're
No.
talking-
No, that's
okay,
just-
You're talking about easement, yeah.
But they still have to have frontage requirements and all that to do it. And there's another part of this that I think we need to address tonight. We keep talking about it. We went down to 100 feet, but we did not take into account easements. I think we need to get the language in there, 100 feet unencumbered. If you're gonna put an easement down it, it needs to be 150 feet. And I think that needs to be added to it.
and we're still gonna do the 50-foot easement,
Excuse me?
still with the 50-foot easement?
Yeah, I
or-
don't think we want to tackle that beast yet.
Yeah, I changed it, and on my thing for the easements to be either 20 or 30 feet easement.
I don't think we're ready to do that yet. I think we just have to put the language in on the 100-foot, 1 acres,
The unencumbered, yeah.
that it has to be unencumbered. Can
Or-
we please get that in?
Or say 100 unencumbered or 150.
100
Unencumbered,
unencumbered,
yes.
which would mean it would have to be 150 if they were going to put an easement in it like we were talking about and putting it back. That gives plenty of room to build a house. The easement, yes, a 50-foot easement is probably too big.
But I know you discussed that before, but not really. If they set the meter at the road and you've got to run 2 water services back there, you know what I mean, 50 feet starts getting pretty small.
Right. So that, like I said, I don't know that we want to tackle the 50 feet yet. We're one of the only counties that require that, anywhere that I've ever seen.
I don't think it's not too big. I mean,
But
Well, and
I
I
think
think,
we
what
can
are we
live
talking
with
about,
that.
ingress, egress easements that, for people to get to back to the lots?
your utilities will have to be in the easement.
Where we at?
Underground utilities.
Where we at?
so we need to decide on the split what we're thinking about pushing to the commissioners. Do we want to to make that only on an agricultural zone? And that would cure what he's talking about.
So you're
Yes, I do have a concern. I guess what I'm thinking too. I might be overthinking it. But, right now we have it that there can't be 2 structures on one piece of property. I guess what I'm thinking is if somebody keeps splitting it and then they just put a mobile home on it, a mobile home on it, a mobile home on it, or building it, and for all their family members.
If they have the property and the footage to do that, we can't discriminate against a mobile home
Right.
versus a stick-built home. That's illegal for us to do.
Right, okay. I'm just making sure that it's gonna be, because
Are
they
you
end up
talking
with a
about-
whole bunch
Are
of
you
8
talking a camper or a modular?
or anything if they even build. I know, I'm just thinking surely somebody would not overpopulate their own because someone is not gonna buy it, 50 years from now with a whole bunch of homes on it. But if they, so I'm just kind of thinking of that, we're saying, oh, you can't have that structure, but guess what? It's not on the property. That's a separate property now. That's a separate parcel.
Right.
So,
But we can't say, it just has to meet our codes, 950 square feet with the frontage and the acreage and passes the septic test.
right,
That's
but they can
about-
have some off the easement, right?
Huh?
They can have lots off the easement.
They can have 2, that's what our ordinance says now. Only 2. Before, they had no limit to that. They could just run an easement all the way back through a farm
Yeah.
and
That's
just
what we were
start
gonna have to
poking them
coordinate
off.
with all, that's kind of like go over here and that, so.
So I think what I'm hearing, if we stay with what we got, the 4 splits, 2 years on an agricultural zone.
Okay.
Can I ask, are you changing that from 5 to 2? Is that what this means on? Or is it already changed?
No, they are.
Nothing has changed. It's a lifetime now.
Nothing has changed yet.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, nothing has changed yet, but they already voted on the 2 before.
We already voted on the 2 last month.
It's being our initial language. Nothing has been voted on in past and in
I see.
order yet.
I was just wondering, I've got 2 farms in Indian Lanes, they sit on, they find it. I bought it as I've
That's-
got 9
that's
lots put back together into a single farm. And I like the fact of the 5-year because it slows progress. It slows dividing that ground up. I was kind of Jonathan on that, and I like that, but if you are voting on it, that's just my personal opinion. I'm not sure where you're at, I'm just.
Let
And we're
folks,
gonna,
I'm starting getting lost in my brain. I turned 71 later in the week, so I have patience with my old ass.
the split rule is in the subdivision ordinance, so we need to add another section then to agricultural. Because that's what actually that is. That split rule believes in the subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
I'm pecking my brain to figure out where we got R2 and 100 acres.
How what?
Where do we have an R2 that is big enough to be divided?
Oh. I don't know. Anything in the county that's R2?
Right now? I mean, I don't know of any.
Yeah.
It hasn't in the last 3 months.
R1.
That's all I know.
I'm hearing 3 things. Yes, personally, I think we gotta split agricultural off. If we've got R1, R2, what any of the rest of us is, and they do a split, that's for a lifetime right now, correct? It stays
Well-
that way, correct?
R1 and R2, their lot sizes are smaller, their road frontage is smaller.
But it's for a lifetime, correct?
Well, you have to come and present for an R1 or R2.
Right.
They've already kind of passed the scrutiny if they've got an R1 or an R2.
But they
And
can't
I'm assuming
split.
that's predominantly, is that within the city limits, or do we have, I'm not sure what we've got. in
We
the
don't have a
county.
lot out in the county, no. So if they're R1 or R2, they're gonna have to come here and like ask to
But
be
it's
done.
not, they just can't wait 2 years and split again. They gotta jump through, what I'm trying to get down to, let's focus on R. Let's make our decisions for R, or A, agriculture.
Yeah.
The rest of it stays the same. In agriculture, me, the decision now, is it a 5-year or a 2-year? And whatever it is, has to have 100 feet unencumbered.
Yes.
We're gonna
That's,
change that to 100 feet unencumbered.
and I'm happy with 5.
5 years.
Okay, then we'll have to put that to a vote.
Yeah.
We'll have to make a vote to strike down the 2-year, right?
We won't do it tonight.
Right. Next time and implement it to 5. We so choose to do that.
And I'm happy with 2.
Where you at?
I liked the two, that's why I argued for it last time.
I can't think of a scenario where somebody has R1 zoning or R2 that has sewer. You're saying they could bypass the drainage board.
They can come and present to this board as they were gonna build subdivision.
Right.
And once you grant them that, they don't have to build subdivision, they can back out of it. And then that takes them away from the controls of doing subdivision and the drainage board. And then with the split rule, as long as they have the road frontage and an easement, they can build, I guess, until they run out of road frontage or an easement. And then sell the back off to whoever, maybe adjoining land owner, that would be away from the easement.
Well, if they come to us and tell us it's a subdivision, it's a subdivision.
But they don't have to follow through with that. Once you grant them an R1, they can back out. You don't have any way of following through.
So once we grant that, yeah, you can have a subdivision, they can go do what they want.
They could back,
They can start lotting it off with the splits that you allow, if you include this in your splits rule.
No, 2 different things.
which anybody can always step back in zoning, right? Versus, I guess if they come and ask for a subdivision, like you said, and it's approved, but then they so choose not to do that, and they want to follow agricultural building specs,
They're still just gonna be able to build.
they're still just gonna be able to build
2 years.
what someone could do on an R1.
But if it's not it's not subdivision, then you don't have any plans to look over, there's no drainage permits, there's no.
But it really
So you're
would,
saying, so what you're saying, if you guys own an R1, then they have to submit plans for their subdivision and a drainage plan to build anything, to get a building permit and build anything on it.
correct.
If it's on the R1, it would have to.
If it's on R1, they have to, because they're going to a higher density.
Yeah.
A closer density.
Yeah, I'm not understanding Jonathan Hires. They're not getting around the permits.
I know they're not getting around building permits.
But if they're going back to an acre or plus, I don't know. I mean, I guess if they took 50 acres, but for them to do enough road frontage for that to happen, they would still have to put in the road that would be approved by the commissioners as a legal road, correct?
And that takes a 2-year process.
It has to be checked out.
I'm stuck, folks. So if somebody comes here and we give them the right to build a subdivision, they don't have to follow that. They can take the same property, build whatever the hell they want to on it, split it. There's nothing to say, hey, Ben, don't give them that building permit because that's a subdivision. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Or am I not hearing it right?
He's saying somewhere that has sewer access, you're saying if they jump up to an acre, they can get by without going to the drainage board. I think.
No, if they go around a subdivision
Right, or,
application.
right, yeah, as long as the zoning changes, their lot size is smaller. And as long as they don't submit plans or anything, they can just build.
Don't they have to submit plans?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, no one can do a subdivision
They
without,
can
it
do
has
it
to,
on
we have
less
to
than an
come
acre.
to,
I'm not talking about subdivision,
Yeah.
I'm talking if they decide that they're not gonna build subdivision, they're just gonna lot with the splits that you allow and build houses. They can do it on 1/4 acre lots until they run out of
Well,
splits.
you're not going to approve the subdivision
The splits
No.
say that,
until you have the
They're not-
drainage plan.
the splits say they have to be an acre for it to qualify for the splits. They
Well,
couldn't stay with their 1/4
in
acre
ag,
lots.
in ag, that's what I'm saying, because it's R1, that's,
it's like,
there's still, yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to do that.
what,
Because we're gonna
what
say
he's
ag.
saying is, if it, just like the very first
Okay.
meeting I was in, and on Craig Road, we allowed that to be R1. So if they come in and decide that they're not gonna put a subdivision, we don't have a subdivision plat in front of us yet. They're just gonna go with the 4 split rule every 2 years and not have a subdivision. So we don't have a subdivision plat. They don't have a drainage plan. And every 2 years, just do the 4 splits or whatever is allowable on R1. So there's never a subdivision application. So they've never went through that subdivision plan
But they
or
have to,
anywhere.
but they have to do it on 1 acre lots.
So, but.
But they're
Well,
already
already
zoned.
R1.
They're
It's a
already
particular
zoned
one, but
R1.
we rezoned,
Okay,
we
so
rezoned to R1.
Here's-
There's been a lot sold off of that 1/4 acre. It's a small lot already, so it's happening. It's
Here's
not,
what
it's not really hypothetical.
here's what I'm hearing now. Someone came to us and said, I want to build a subdivision.
I see what you're talking about.
Okay, it's an R1.
Right.
They changed their
They
mind.
dropped the subdivision.
Maybe,
kept it
maybe
in
not.
R1.
Yeah.
So when the subdivision goes away,
The zoning
the
doesn't.
the zoning doesn't go.
It's still R1.
And so there's already been a structure built, a small lot sold, that structure in a small lot, and there's never been the first plan for the subdivision submitted and agreement. So it's happening.
My question then is, and I keep going back. So someone came to here, gave us information that they were going to build a subdivision. We rezoned it. How are they getting a building permit if we don't have a subdivision plan?
That's what I'm.
Well,
That's true, like, I don't think they're allowed to.
That one, that is in the R1 reg,
But they used one of their
Restrictions.
splits.
right. So
Okay.
they still have 3 more splits that they can do on the current ordinance, and maybe more. I'm not sure what an R1 ordinance split is, but they're under their regulations.
Right, I see what you're talking, I understand now.
It's a loophole.
I don't. If it's an R1, only because we said you're building a subdivision here.
I think to stop it, we need to put more time on it. I think
To
5 years.
clarify for Gary, the house was being built during the rezone process. It was granted when it was agriculture. The house was built, it was a model home, whatever. The rezone happened to the whole property, and then the house was split off on a quarter acre at a later date. Because the whole place is all.
I think the time limit would trigger that.
Well, and the other part of it then is the catch-all would be we're only talking about agriculture. All the rest of the rules apply. If you want to split off of an R1, let's talk about it, but
You still have to come before the board,
right.
beyond your four allowed splits.
Right. So they're under their
They could do 3 more,
right. Yes.
but to do any more than that,
And I got several of those in the county. People are waiting to see what we do. They're doing their 4 splits and they're waiting,
okay?
which is allowable.
But the only way you get by with less than an acre is if you're on a sewer system, right?
Yes.
And that's very limited area.
Okay.
That is very limited.
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
We either have to put language in there in R1, they have to come ask variances to do it, or we increase the time to make it not feasible to do it.
I don't think we increase the time on an agriculture.
Then I think we have to exclude an R1 or R2.
Or anything that's not agriculture.
So only agriculture.
They would still have to come ask for a variance or produce a subdivision plan. That makes sense to me.
Got the twitches. Got the twitches, so I can't get, I'm not trying to.
How's that sit with you, Randy?
It's making sense to me. And if they don't end up building a subdivision, they still need to come back with a plan.
Come back with a plan.
Yeah.
If it makes sense, they can come ask for a variance. And yeah, subdivisions get started, they get drawn up and then they, a lot of times have a habit of not following through for a good number of years. But then someone else picks it up down the road and starts the
I've had
process
several.
over again.
Yeah.
And most of the time we want them to finish it out and make it a good part of the community. But we don't want them to be able to go around all rules.
Right.
So I think we stay with the 2 years on any agricultural land with the 1 acre, anything that's an R1 or above. They only get their 4, and then they have to come back in front of the board to either get a variance or produce a subdivision plan.
Yes.
So that piece of property you're talking about, he could go ahead and get his other 3 or 4 lots, 3 lots. But then they're done until they either produce a subdivision plan or come and present an alternate plan of some type. That makes it time.
Or meet the time period.
Well, they're saying the time period is too low. They'll just wait the 2 years and keep doing them.
Okay, well, that's what I said. You take your 4 and then you wait the time period unless you can get a variance. Or some sort of,
But what he's saying is 2 years is too short. They'll move ahead, and in 8 years, they could have 16 homes there. Is that right? Yeah.
As long as there's road frontage.
What's that?
As long as there's road frontage or easement, the way you're talking about it.
Right. That would be
You can only build till you're out of that.
right. That would stop them at, well,
Situational, it depends on.
it's situational. There is places that have enough road frontage to do that, and that's not really what we want to happen.
Well, most of my subdivisions have roads built in them. I mean,
Yeah, if you go the
even,
right way into a subdivision, then that's exactly right.
Right. It's
And
just-
roads,
That box is
aesthetic,
mine.
and drainage, storm water control and all that.
They couldn't just come in and build their road frontage and keep splitting
6,000.
every 2. Or maybe we say, well, I don't know. Maybe we say on an R1 or above, we put a 10-year on it. I've seen that in other places, ordinances.
I like it. Leave the guy where he can split his farm if he wants to. And shut down the, let's call it unscrupulous developer. Cause I know the place you're talking about.
And if we
I think everybody does.
would we better off just put a 10-year on it? Or just say they have to come back here?
No.
For what?
Huh?
I think 10 years too long, 'cause it might be
For what?
a case where a family is getting the farm, and that's an awful long time.
I think he's only talking about R1, R2, and R3, right?
Right.
Yeah, we're talking about the case, like he said there, about somebody gets the subdivision approved that, either that or, we can change things to where we can't change the zoning from agriculture to a subdivision until we have an approved drainage plan.
You can zone it R1, it's just you can't do it, but he's saying they could, but bypass it with the 2-year rule.
Well, you put a rule in there where you can't do that.
I say that only applies to agricultural. R1 and R2 still stands, they still have to come ask for they can do their 4 splits if they want, but they still have to come ask for a variance or produce a subdivision plan.
I think that covers it.
Does that make sense to everybody?
That makes perfect sense to
Can you
me.
do a
does it
rezone
make sense to
on
you to write it
stipulation
up?
that they follow the plan that presented to get the rezone? Is that such a thing?
What's that?
Can you rezone with the stipulation that they follow the plan and submit it to get the rezone? Or something similar? Not really.
Not really, because if you look at subdivisions around, they get started
Right, and then changes hands.
and changes hands and all that, but if the new developer wants to go with the original plan, I think you have to let them do that. But if they want to change it, they have to come in and ask for it again. I think.
I'm looking down that way. I think we, have we got this one figured out?
Yeah, I'm looking at the subdivision ordinance right now, trying to,
That's where the split rule is currently,
What's how the split rule is.
Damn it.
in the subdivision plan, in the subdivision ordinance book.
Tell me
Not-
how it is. Tell me what you're saying.
Our split ordinance isn't in our ordinance books, it's in the subdivision ordinance book.
Okay. And you say that's how it is now. Tell me what that means. I don't understand what you mean.
that I am not sure that it's one more time here. That's where the easements come off. The easement situation that is in the subdivision, not the,
Scott County ordinance book.
yeah, it's not in the ordinance. It's in the subdivision
Well,
control ordinance.
we've been given easements off of stuff that's not in the subdivision forever. It's gotta be somewhere else. You can give an easement through a agricultural piece of property, that's done every day.
Well, I think that that's up to the owner to get, I'm saying he would want to access easement, but that's, I'm saying where that specifically, I have never seen it, but it's actually
It
highlighted
has
here.
to
No
be in
more
there.
than 2 lots may gain access from a private access easement. A legal description of the easement and maintenance provision for such easement shall be recorded in the office of the Scott County Recorder for both dominant and servient properties. Each access easement shall be at least 50 feet wide and shall also serve as a utility easement if necessary.
Okay.
The subdivision of land shall not compel the city or county to extend public streets, roads, or utilities.
I think we may get hung up on that it says subdivision part, but any division is a subdivision, kind of. And doesn't that carry through? That doesn't only count to per se subdivisions, right?
That's what I tried to figure out. There is a basic subdivision that does need to come to the board. That just goes to the executive director. There are minor subdivisions, and then there are the major subdivisions.
Okay, a basic subdivision is what we're talking about. That doesn't have to come to the board. They come to Stacy, and if they meet the criteria, she grants it without having to come here. That's what we're talking about.
Right. Okay. That's okay. So they do come up here. Okay. And so yeah.
In some counties, they refer to that as administrative subdivision.
Right. But anytime you cut a piece of property, you're subdividing it. You're not a subdivision per se, what people think of a subdivision.
Well, that's kind of potato, but you're right. When you cut an acre out of Grandpa's 100-acre farm, that's a subdivision of that 100-acre farm.
Right. But that's not
But that's not what most people think of when they
think of a subdivision.
They think of multiple.
So I think all these.
Right. I'm just thinking anything a subdivision is a division of the property.
Yes.
So that's what would be the basic. Okay. So that's it. So they would still need to come.
They have to come to Stacy to
Right.
do that. And like I said, if it meets the basic criteria, she just grants it right there.
Yeah.
Right. That's how we want it. But can we not say that's for agricultural and R1
Yeah, I think that would be.
and R1, R2, whatever still goes by the other. They can have their basic 4, but beyond that,
What subdivision, what page?
if they
Paragraph.
done it R1, they have to come and ask for
Just need to
variance
bring books each time.
or present a subdivision plot for either a minor or a major subdivision.
Right, yeah, I don't think I'm more trying, I think that the split rule really only is going to be applying to basic subdivisions. But that's where, we gotta make sure they can't skirt. Well, I guess they wouldn't really, because I think we should maybe not be a matter of right, and when that one thing says that, because if they try to do that, Stacy could catch it.
Yes.
Saying like, oh, wait a minute, no, you can't use that. This is so she could, I guess there should be a mechanism where she can say, no, you're treading on minor subdivision. You need to actually apply for that to happen.
Right. Or if they went to the 1 acre, they couldn't do it on the 1/4 acre lots. They couldn't do it on anything less than 100-foot frontage, unencumbered, and an acre. If they go back to that criteria, even if they've got R1, I don't know that we should or could stop them. If they're on sewer.
Because like you said, you can back up zoning.
you can back up from zoning. And that's what they would be doing. And I think what our thoughts are here, everybody else weigh in. We're just trying to keep from having a highly dense subdivision made without us having any kind of control.
Yes.
But if they're doing an acre or more and they have sewer, I don't know that we have a problem with, I don't have a problem with it on this board.
Because you can currently do that with no plans, so, you know.
You can do it anyway.
No drainage plans, I mean, that's just a residence.
Right. I think that's, if they go to the 1 acre and the footage requirement, why do we care? Matter of fact, if they can do that on sewer, that's all the better.
Absolutely.
If they want to do less than that, they have to come and ask for a major or a minor subdivision,
Or a variance from an individual.
or a variance.
Yeah.
And at that point, that lets a board look at it, at least one board, if not 2 or 3. So however you got to word that,
All right.
Yeah, I'm
that's,
thinking.
That's what, move on to the next one.
I think that, or do we have another one?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. So the
The-
3 things we've accomplished tonight, let's recap them. We're gonna write up the solar,
Fee schedule. Disclaimer.
alternative energy,
You need to ask.
where we all get a look at it before the next meeting.
Email that out for everybody to
But I don't have the disclaimer.
look at.
Okay.
We're kind of hemming up.
Okay, I do have one additional.
Yes.
I have the fee schedule ready to go to the Board of Commissioners, but we said something about a disclaimer last time. Can
About what?
a disclaimer about inspections. I didn't get, because I need legal language for a disclaimer. So can you tell us again what you want the disclaimer to be?
Was the disclaimer about how many times a visit,
We did something
the
about
charges or
inspection.
the visits,
Well,
inspections?
Additional inspections?
Was that what it was?
the size of the house might result in more inspections.
Complexity of the house.
And the other part of that was someone building a house and failing to make meetings
Oh, that's right, they don't,
in kind of an organized
have that.
fashion.
I would have that, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, failed inspections we have covered.
So Ben, I can't say Ben, but we wanted the disclaimer to state that we could charge more
For additional inspections?
for additional.
Inspections.
Are you gonna charge the same amount? Why don't we just make another fee, just send it forward? There's a building inspection and then.
And I forgot what our notice
Additional,
requirement was.
Well, I mean, I have what each building, how many inspections they take to give them the invoice
Right.
for their
I
building.
mean, the whole idea here is if somebody's trying to get by with something and they get caught, to realize, okay, this is gonna cost me more money, I need to stop trying to do that. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at, right? That's the,
Or if they're super inefficient and Ben says, they say they're ready for their, whatever it would be, electrical, plumbing and such on this inspection, he goes out there and only the electrical's ready. He has to go
right, yeah,
time and time again.
Yeah.
Or if they get there and it's not passable and they have to redo something,
We do have something on there about a field inspection.
About
We
what?
have that on the new fee schedule. About a failed inspection, a fee will be added. But I thought that last time we said something about a disclaimer, if he sees that there needs to be additional inspections, that we're allowed to charge for that
Yeah,
type thing.
Yes. Put some language on there for that.
Some like,
Well, we just need.
Basically, we're allowed to do more
Just saying that
inspections.
it's-
if
Yeah.
deemed necessary,
I'm sorry.
based upon the particular piece of property. Or the particulars of the property.
At the property owner builder's expense.
I didn't hear that part.
Now, if someone were to start abusing that, we would have to look at it again. But I don't think we will.
Are we finished?
Let's do one recap.
Do you want to put a price on the additionals? Like each inspection would be,
You're basing them on like $30 now, aren't you?
I believe so,
Whatever that number is that you're basing the other
Yeah.
inspections on, use that number.
use that. Awesome.
Mhm, okay.
All right,
Based
Alright,
upon
we
a
got
given pricing
Okay.
structure.
Okay. Let's do a recap to see where we're at. Number one, solar and alternative energies. We're gonna kind of go with the little outline that you have here.
Yeah, clean it
Right.
up into more of a form that we would
Get it
actually
more in the
present to them.
form and see if we can get that email to everybody before the next meeting. And at that point, everybody can put in their thoughts on it when they see it. And maybe have it ready to go by the next meeting. Something that we can vote on. Number two.
easements.
Develop legal language for the split rule. And on that, we're going to say that that only applies to
Agriculture.
agriculture.
Agricultural.
But we're gonna stay with the 2 years on the agricultural. The other thing is, we're going to add to the 100-foot frontage rule, that say 100-foot unencumbered,
Yes.
which means if they're going to put an easement, it has to be 100-foot free of easements. If they were doing 2 lots and they made them both 125 and put 25 foot on one lot and 25 on the other, that would be acceptable, but those would have to both be 125-foot lots. Or it could be 40 on one, 10 on another. I think that's why unencumbered rather than just saying 150 foot works, because properties are gonna be irregular and they may wanna put an easement in, but it may only have to be 10 foot on this lot and 40 foot on that lot,
If they sold those lots.
if they sold those lots.
Mhm.
So I think the unencumbered covers all that for pretty much any scenario that comes up. If we just say 150, we're making people use frontage that they don't really have to have in most cases. But on these other cases, we've got something in there to cover it. Because you really need 100 foot to build a home and have a decent structure.
Right.
So if we could get unencumbered in there, I think that covers all of our problems in the future.
Agreed.
So if we could have that written up at the next
Okay,
meeting to
yes.
vote on.
So in that though, if someone just has 100-foot road, then they won't be able to grant an easement to
They will
anybody.
not be
though,
able to
right?
grant an easement. Well, and build a home. They could grant an easement, but they're not gonna be able to build a home on that property.
It would just be access to a field.
No, that's
maybe.
what I was meaning. If somebody had a lot though, I mean, and that's fine. And they had their house on there and they wanted to sell something behind them. They're not going to be able to do that because they're not going to be able to give those people an access easement.
But
Short of tearing their house
There-
down.
There could be, that's something they would have to come and ask for. a
Right, yeah, right,
variance.
except for this, but
And
just
then
for
we
this,
could look
yeah.
at the particular situation. That property could be at a,
Right, or something
high
like that,
shape.
yes.
and their driveway goes way back and they've got their house built way over here. There's a
Right,
chance
this-
that that could work.
Right.
But just to put it as a blanket, no, they would have to come and ask for an easement if it made, or for a variance. If it made sense, it could possibly work. But
But,
then,
okay, but yeah, that's,
I mean,
he get it for the variance.
we're just talking general rules. I mean, if it's something else that comes up, I mean,
that's what the BZA,
Stacy,
Right, right.
yeah.
they can come and
So,
plead
but
their
yeah,
case.
that'd be something that they could
If
do
it don't
for
fit
variance,
into
okay.
our neat package, then Stacy will have to say, okay, you have to come to board.
Right, and that's fine to do, because I can think of a scenario where that would work. They've only got 100 foot of road frontage, but all they have on that
But it
is
goes
a
right.
driveway going back, and then it L's over, and the house and structures and all the septic fields are way back here. There's a chance that you could give a 50-foot easement and not hurt a thing, but we can't just let
Right.
people do that without some discretion.
And there is property that does not need easements. I mean, the last piece of
Right,
property.
yeah, that's just if they need an easement, yeah, that's not saying.
Well,
you
I
don't
have
have
a
to-
piece of property that lied behind mine, that a guy farmed. There was no easement through my property. There wasn't easement through my neighbor's property here, nor here. There was an easement through this guy's property
Right, right,
and two
exactly,
doors down.
yes. Okay, now, so I'm not getting all this. Do we have 4 splits? Or
What?
3 splits, 4 lots?
4 splits,
4 splits for 5 buildable lots every 2 years.
yes.
Just
If
need to
they
find
meet
what's
all the
going on,
other
'cause I know what we're
criteria.
changing.
Okay, I'll get that.
Yeah. I know what we're changing on, and then we're gonna add solar, so it's gonna be a new.
That's just, Joe.
Just saying. We need to sign it.
Let me see.
I think that's probably the one we did already send out.
I have a signed copy of the minutes, is that clear?
So is that all we've covered tonight? We know where we're at.
Sign that.
Are you clear on that, Carla? And you clear on that, Stacy? Is there anything else we need to cover?
I think that's it, with the 100 feet unencumbered. Up to 5 buildable lots, 4 splits every 2 years. Adding the solar into the ordinance. Shape that up so we can possibly have it be for public comment and or vote. And this, oh, yeah, the splits are just for agricultural.
Yes.
I think that's it.
You ready?
Guys ready to adjourn? I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned at 8:22.
Okay.